everybody. It's your pal Spaz Phoenix along with Kristen. This is FLIX, kind of. We're back to talk about WANDAVISION. Kristen, how are you?
Doing good. Maximum effort here.
We're doing another double episode because we weren't able to.
That's what we say when we're tired.
Yeah, we're tired and the week is long and the week is hard and
the week is shit.
And the week is shit.
On.
And the week is shit. But anyways, for multitudes of reasons, we didn't get to come up here and talk to you guys about WandaVision last week, so, much like 2 weeks ago, you're getting a double review. Yay! Streamers, balloons. Generally speaking, though, still a lot of fun. Still super fun.
A lot of fun.
Still a lot of campy, stupid fun, and realistically, like, story-building Marvel actual fun, too.
These 2 episodes actually went well together as a review because it had the campiness, and then the end of episode 3 started getting into the real meat of what's happening, like a small taste, and then episode 4 was like full on. This is what's happening outside of all of this, and you still don't really know what's going on, even though you've now seen both sides.
And by the end of this, we can sort of say that Wanda's the main character / also kind of the villain.
Villain, yeah.
Which I really like. We're going to talk about it in a second, but before we came on today, we were talking about...
I would just like to add that I don't know if you... Sorry. I don't know if you have been, but I'm not reading any, like, speculation articles or any, like, this person might be the villain, or... I think this is what's going on, blah, 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 because I'm like, I don't want any preconceived notions. I want it to just be what it is.
Oh, I'm doing the complete opposite. But most of it is people online talking about speculations that they made before the show started. And it's like, oh, remember when we said this? This might be this. So I'm going to put in all my typical plugs. Go watch Emergency Awesome. Go watch Cinema Sins. Go watch What Culture. For those people out there that know and say that it's bad that I mentioned Cinema Sins, still get over it. Also, shout out to our friend Connor, a.k.a. OKFabe, who is also doing WandaVision reviews. I've been catching them. They've been good. He's doing it solo. I need somebody like Kristen to bounce off of because I'm not a super YouTube expert guy. But, behind the scenes, before we get started, you and I talked about this before we started recording, I'm perfectly okay if they break up the episodes between, here's an episode that's going to happen sort of like in the Wanda bubble, and then we have a completely separate episode that's like, okay, here's what the real world's been up to, and then we go back into the bubble. If that's a format going forward, not necessarily saying that it is, I think it works, because the contrast is part of what makes it fun.
I don't know. I was really getting into episode 4 because Spaz and I both watched episode 4 right before we started this.
Like 5 minutes ago.
Really watched episode 3 last week.
Yeah.
I was really getting into this episode, and then I looked to see how much longer it was. I was like, oh, I know exactly where they're going to end this episode, and it's too soon for me.
Yeah.
And now I have to wait. Which is what you want in a TV show, to where you're like, oh, fuck me, it ended.
I was kind of misinformed, too, and I might have mentioned this in our last review. I was given to understand that the 30-minute running time was going to be for the episodes that were running as a sitcom, and then when they branched out into normal, like, current-day MCU, like, this is the real world, this is the real show, that it was going to be a more of an hour-long runtime, closer to anybody that's watching The Mandalorian knows that it sort of hovers around the 1 hour mark, and it's not. Episode 4 was just over 30 minutes, and I think episode 3 was just under or something like that. Other thing that I didn't find out until I went on Wikipedia, because they don't tell you on Disney Plus, and I don't think they tell you really anywhere else, the episodes do in fact have names. So
yes, they do. They tell you on Disney Plus. They have names.
Do they? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When I went to it initially, it was just like episode 1 streaming now, episode 2 streaming now. So to backtrack,
let me see.
Episode
1 was filmed before a live studio audience. 2
Don't touch that dial.
3 was now in color, and 4 as we interrupt this program.
I love how all of them are just cheesy sitcom. They're cheesy sitcom lines, but also fully fit the episodes. And they didn't have to do that. It could have just been like WandaVision episode 1, WandaVision episode 2, etc. Anyways, I think we can not that it's not important, but I think we can kind of sort of blitz through what happened last week on Now in Color.
I want to get.
We want to dig into. We want to dig into episode 4, and again, cards on the table. We got another podcast to record after this one. That's not going to be WandaVision. Still going to be MCU. Bit of a spoiler. It is what it is. So Now in Color. Obviously, we've moved into the 70s. The 70s intro was great.
It looks very Brady Bunch.
It's very 70s. Like, it's just very 70s.
I mean, their house looks a little Brady Bunch. It has like the staircase, and it has like the step into the den area.
Yeah.
Like how the entranceway is like a little, like a couple steps higher than the actual den area.
Somebody had to actually point out to me that now that it's in color, the stained glass window along the back wall of the set is the 6 colors of the Infinity Stones. Which I would not have caught. The more obvious stuff, like I think it's episode 2 when Wanda and Vision are doing the magic show, and they've got the thing on the front of the disappearing box that definitely looks like the Mind Stone. I did not pick up on the colors of the stained glass window. Wasn't my point of focus. Long story short, it's the story of Wanda's twins being born. It's the 70s. Super patronizing doctor comes in to tell her that your baby are the size of fruit. And we have to tell the women by fruit because then they can understand it. And I'm like,
yeah, super patronizing.
Dude is patronizing through the whole damn thing. We use the conversation between him and Vision to sort of underline the fact that, yeah, she like just got knocked up yesterday and the kids are coming today type thing. Outside of the babies being born, or eventually being born, you've got the neighbors on the outside that are all acting weird, and one of them is just trimming the hedges, because that's what neighbors do in sitcoms.
And it's like going into the wall.
He's cutting the wall. He's breaking down the wall of the reality. The symbolism sort of beats you over the head a little bit. They do the very cliche parents fighting over baby names thing, foreshadowing that it's going to be twins. Vision is learning all about what nesting is, and it's when you set up the house for the babies, and all of a sudden all the baby toys sort of come to life, and the mobile over the bed is butterflies.
Yeah, it turns into butterflies, and nobody addresses that. They're just like, oh, that was fucking weird. Whatever.
Yeah. The one thing that I want them to address eventually is basically Vision is a creation of Wanda as part of this world. Like, it's not the Vision that we knew, because the Vision that we knew is dead. We don't know yet if...
They go a smidge more into that in episode 4.
They do, but like, in the portrayal so far, just if we're keeping it in episode 3 for a second, they don't ever really touch on whether Vision knows that Wanda created him or not. And this
episode they sort of do.
Yeah. But I like the ambiguity of that when we were strictly just living in the bubble, because not knowing what he knows makes it an entirely Wanda show, not a Wanda and Vision show. So we talked about the mobile coming to life, the butterflies flying away, all the other house stuff starts going crazy, typical, like, pictures spinning on the wall type thing, all the plumbing.
Typical, you have powers and you're pregnant, so they're gonna go haywire.
Yeah, but it's also typical, like, sitcom effects, where it's literally just somebody on the other side of the wall has a post that's attached to that photo, and they're just spinning it. And out of nowhere, the chandelier drops. The one that did pop me for its cheesiness is when her water breaks, all the plumbing goes nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cheesy as hell. It is, but I'm here for it. And then we get the commercial, which was for Hydra Bubble Bath.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again...
Hydro Bath. Hydro bath.
Little on the nose, but it is what it is. And then we get Geraldine coming in. And there's this totally bizarre thing, and like I said about Vision a second ago, with her as well, like all the characters that are in like Wanda's world, you never know what they know, you never know what they're aware of, but somehow she's not aware that the person she's talking to has a basketball under her shirt, pretty much, and they do long, prolonged, like neighbor small talk on the couch. And the fact that Wanda's kids are coming... And
Wanda's trying to hide that she's, like...
in labor.
At this point.
And I love that it's symbolized by, like, a literal stork that's just, like, walking around that the neighbor can't see. And if you want to go with a little bit of a metaphor, I guess, she tries to, like, magic it away. And the way they do the graphics for her magic in the 70s is just, like, red smoke. Whereas before it was, like, bewitched, like, sparkles and whatever. Mm-hmm. But the whole, like, she tries to magic it away and it won't go away because she can't make the kids go away. The kids are coming. It's hilarious and awkward at the same time. And then you do the typical, well, we're having a woman have kids, but we're doing it on a sitcom, so she's clearly lying behind the couch. So all you're going to see is the happy baby when it's all said and done.
And not a newborn. It's, like, clearly an older kid.
It's like 2 years old or whatever.
Maybe a few months old, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple months, like, it's not a newborn.
I mean, later on in the episode when she puts them in the crib, they don't even look like babies. They look like dolls at one point. It might be just in, like, 1 or 2 shots, or it might just be, like, a bad shot, but there's a couple of shots where they don't even look like real kids. In the meantime, Vision has gone, and he doesn't care about, like, showing off that he can do, like, super speed and whatever. He goes and kidnaps the doctor, because the doctor was going on vacation as soon as the appointment at the beginning of the episode was over. And, of course, he has to convince the doctor that the babies that you told us about yesterday that were only, like, 4 months along are coming now. So he zips back with the doctor, but the baby's already been born. And it does, again...
Yeah, Geraldine helps deliver the baby.
Because that's what good neighbors...
The first one.
Like a good neighbor, Geraldine is there.
Yes.
Yeah. I made a comment on another podcast that I did with Jake and Guapo that I was making really bad jokes on that pod, and if you had been there with us, I would have gotten the Kristen boo.
Boo.
There we go. Good. And again, I get repetitive on this, but it is a very cliche, like, sitcom thing where it's like, well, I've had my kid, and give me my baby and all that. Well, what about the other one? What do you mean the other one? What do you mean they're twins? Which makes I love it because it makes them fighting over the names at the beginning of the episode completely redundant.
Yeah.
Which is even better. So when she thought she was having one, she definitely wanted to name the kid. But now that she's had a second one, you can name the other one. It's fine. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it cuts very quickly from, like, the kids being born to Vision sort of seeing the doctor on his way, have a nice vacation.
And he starts having a chat with the neighbors who are...
Well, the doctor glitches out first, sort of. And
the doctor's like, I don't guess we're going to be making it to that vacation.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be going on that vacation. You know how small towns are. They're really hard to escape. Meanwhile, Geraldine's on the inside, and, oh my god, twins, so wonderful, and all that kind of thing. And she's like, and she sort of zones out and gets kind of serious. It's like, yeah, like, I was a twin. My brother.
Wanda starts to zone out and say she was and she gets her accent back.
A little bit. She gets the accent back as soon as she says the brother's name. I think the accent slips in when she says Pietro.
She says the brother's name, and she gets a little bit of an accent back.
Yeah. And then that's when Geraldine kind of breaks, and she's like, "Yeah, wasn't he killed by Ultron?" Turn around, all of a sudden she's got, like, the biggest, like, sword organization medallion hanging, like, right in the center of her outfit that I don't think was there when she got there. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
I think it's one of those, like, it became more noticeable because Wanda was noticing it type thing, and she freaks, and she goes, like, super villain a little bit. It's like, who are you? How do you know who I am? You don't belong here. Da-da-da-da.
Yeah, and Wanda literally throws her out, and we see her shoot out this like bubble into what we assume is the real world, Geraldine.
Well, that's the brilliant thing is you don't see that. I mean, we're gonna get to that in episode 4 in a second.
You don't see her get shoot out. You just see that she's gone, and then all of a sudden,
Vision comes in,
rolling, and she is in the real world.
Well, Vision comes in, and she's like, "Oh, honey, how are the kids? Where did Geraldine go?"
Geraldine?
And she's like staring off into nowhere, and she does that totally deadpan. Oh, she had to leave. And it's like those words just coupled together just like that should not be terrifying.
And they are.
And I do want to say, like, I mean, I'm a fan of this character. Anyways, I'm a fan of the character since she debuted in the movies. But it's got to be an exercise in range for Elizabeth Olsen to do the 50s thing, to do the 60s thing, to do the 70s thing now that they're in, and break and do the current character. Like it's not like multiple personality disorder, but playing like a character that changes so, I don't know how to say it. Like,
that has such a range of different type of acting.
Yeah. Like it's like she, because a sitcom is basically a stage show, right? Especially with a studio audience. It's like you go from working on stage to like slipping back into a movie to going back on stage again. And I think because there's so many other cool things happening in the show, I think that bit of it is going to go underappreciated, which kind of sucks. We don't actually see that she was thrown, but we do pan out for the first time to outside of the, what do they call it? The Westview bubble.
Outside of town.
And what I love, and it's a little interesting thing, and again, somebody else had to point this out to me, is she gets thrown out of the reality back into the current reality, but she's still dressed
she's still dressed as in her 70s getup.
Yes, which to me, and a couple of other people have said it as well, to me, that's your first little hint and indicator and whatever, that things that are sort of created or molded or whatever in this reality can be pulled out and made real. Like, she's recreated Vision, who's actually dead, but if she pulls this version of Vision out, or her kids, obviously, who are...
Well, I mean, that's a big thing in the comic, where she, goes crazy.
Yeah, well, she does the No More Mutants thing, except we think that's going to happen in reverse.
That's at the very end. There's something beforehand where her kids die at some point, and she, like, is stuck in her own mind kind of thing. And, yeah, she recreates her own kids, I believe, in the comics.
Because is it true in the comics that her kids, when they're first born, aren't actually her kids? They're just, like, pieces of energy from Mephisto?
Yes.
Okay. Absolutely. And he absorbs them back.
Yeah.
I don't read comics. These are context clues that other people are definitely telling me. I'm going to say again, go check out Emergency Awesome. Dude does great breakdowns, and I take a couple of context clues every now and then from his breakdown before we come and do this here, because a little bit of extra context is good. But, the main thing coming out of that is, first of all, you saw the outside world for the first time. You saw that, like, there is an entire force being built up around this bubble that Wanda's created, and you see, I don't know what they call it. I think the perspective, like the screen perspective, how they keep playing with it as the realities change, and it happens a lot more as we talk about episode 4. But the fact that she got thrown out of the reality, and as she's thrown out of the reality, it sort of morphs into like proper 2021 movie box format. It's such a little touch, but it does make all the difference. I like it a lot. I'm gushing about the show. It's good.
Now we get to the episode I really want to talk about.
Yeah, they've got kids. Moving on. Flipping over.
I want to start this episode because it starts on not Geraldine. Her name is Monica.
Yes.
Is her name? And
I keep messing up the Monica and Maria.
It shows something that we hadn't seen in the MCU before, which is the ramifications of a lot of more of the ramifications. I guess they did show it in Spider-Man Homecoming or Far From Home, the ramifications of everyone coming back all at the same time when they were gone.
I liked seeing it.
I like seeing it, and it brought up a lot of questions for my boyfriend and I, because everybody came back where they disappeared from, it looks like.
Oh yeah, everybody's been saying, like, what
happens if you were on a plane?
That's the argument everybody comes up with.
What happens if you were on a boat somewhere?
Yeah. I think the simplest way that it was said.
What happens if you're on a thing in a building that, like, doesn't exist anymore?
The simplest way that it was put, and this was on Sincast,
is a lot of dead people falling from the sky?
Well, a lot of dead people falling from the sky, but they were even simpler about it. There's something that Endgame is not, as much as they do in Endgame is not prepared to address the social, political, population.
The ramifications.
Of bringing billions of people back. And they gave a lot of great examples. The plane thing is the example that everybody gets. If you were blipped in a plane, do you reappear in the sky? That kind of thing. But also the simpler, like, little tiny personal things, like, you know, somebody's wife got blipped and they eventually got over it in 5 years and got remarried, or so-and-so who's come back from being blipped and finds out that somebody died the old-fashioned way while they were gone, which is what happens here. Like, it's an awesome concept to think that they took out half the population and then brought them back. I don't think Marvel can ever completely encapsulate that. And that's no slight on them. I don't think anybody could. That's such a huge concept that you would be making movies forever if you were going to try and encapsulate all the problems that
and, like, entail. There's a level of chaos just in this hospital scene. So Monica comes back, and she was in a chair in a hospital room, and nobody's in the hospital, but she runs out, and there's people still, like, kind of coming back randomly.
Yeah.
And there's people, like, you know, they're panicked, they don't know where something is. They
think they were just here 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, and it's a much
level of chaos.
It's a much smaller point of it. But the moment in Infinity War when everybody first got dusted and we saw what that looked like and saw everybody fall away and all that sort of thing was such a. You knew that everybody was disappearing, but just the way they did it, how everybody became ash and disintegrated to nothing, to see everybody, like, to see the physical image of everybody sort of, like, reconstituting what I think was an important part. Like, obviously the reactions, everybody realizing what's going on, the chaos, like you say, that follows, but literally seeing people reform and come back was an important thing, I think.
Like I said, they showed kind of like the aftermath in Far From Home of, like, okay, well, now there's a bunch of kids who are, like, now still in the same grade they were in. And,
yeah. Like in Endgame, in the final battle in Endgame.
But they didn't show the actual chaos of, like, holy shit, a bunch of people are back now.
Yeah. When all the players hit the field, so to speak, in Endgame, when there's the big on your left moment and, you know, Doctor Strange sling rings everybody in from all over the world, that's him transporting them from somewhere to somewhere else. They didn't all materialize on the field. And now that I've seen that in the show, that would have been really badass just to see them, like, literally rise from the ashes. Would have been a cool way for them to go if they had decided to go that way. Anyways, so it starts off with a meeting.
We've literally talked about the first minute of the show. That's why I was like, I'm waiting for us to get to episode 4, because that's where all the meat is.
Well, you started off with a bit of a bummer, too, because not only does she not know what's going on, she doesn't know she's been gone, but she also finds out that, as I said before,
her mom died while she was gone.
While she was blipped. I hate that they decided to call it the blip, by the way. Like, the snap was... I know, it doesn't matter.
But nobody else in the world knows that he snapped his fingers.
Yeah. Well, like,
whatever.
But the news would call it, like, the incident or whatever, right? The blip sounds...
It's a silly word, but whatever.
The blip sounds like the kids at Spider-Man's school named it.
I mean, maybe a bunch of young people did name it.
Yeah, well. Anyways, so magically she works for SWORD. So she goes...
she always did work for SWORD.
No, but this is our first, other than the very, very tail end of Spider-Man
Well, that's
Far
what I'm
From
saying.
Home.
Before she got blipped, she worked for SWORD.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, to us, the audience, there was the post-credit in the second Spider-Man movie, but this is the first major encounter that the audience has with the SWORD entity, the SWORD agency, right? And her ID doesn't work because she hasn't been to work in 5 years.
Yeah.
And she's been grounded by rules that were set in place by her mom. So she gets to do boring on-Earth stuff like, hey, go help the FBI because they need to send a drone in and they need one of us to go and be there and do it.
Somebody has to babysit the drone.
Yeah, and she's all pissed and bummed, but she shows up on site and Agent Woo is there, which is cool because you've got Monica Rambeau, who was introduced to us in Captain Marvel. Agent Woo, who was introduced to us in the second Ant-Man. Basically, they're talking to the police, who are trying to say that the city that they're looking at doesn't exist, and that's a loaded statement to be looking.
Agent Woo has been sent on some sort of missing persons case.
Yeah. Are we okay? Here's the one thing I didn't get, and I fully want to throw this to you because this is the one thing in the episode that I couldn't really pick up on. The initial case that they're there for, the initial missing person, are they missing Wanda?
No, I don't believe it's Wanda that's missing.
I don't think they're clear about it.
Because they look shocked whenever they're like, "Why is this two Avengers?" And
yeah,
I'm gonna do a quick Wikipedia search real quick. Just bear with me while keep talking.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying because much as I love the show and as much as they are cramming 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag in this episode, but it's not clear. Is it just somebody random from the town that they were looking for that they can't find anymore? Like, I'm going to the nitpickiest of nitpicks because it ultimately doesn't matter because it just got them there. But I don't know who they're initially there to look for.
Okay, so it says here that she's sent to help FBI agent Jimmy Woo with a missing persons case in Westville, New Jersey.
And apparently Westville doesn't exist, and all the cops are from Eastville. Mm-hmm. Which is it's okay. Obviously, Wanda's created this alternate dimension, so it's the opposite, east-west, rah. So she's there. She gets out her big bad SWORD suitcase with the drone that looks modern and it looks current and it doesn't look at all like the helicopter that we saw a couple episodes.
It looks vaguely like the helicopter we saw. It's the same shape and it is like a helicopter.
It is a helicopter. That is about it.
But it's the same color vaguely and...
So they send the drone in. Obviously the drone disappears past the force field that's there. They, oh my god, what? And, because it's...
Yeah, it goes in and it immediately, once it hits a barrier, it hits an area and it disappears. And then she walks up to it and...
And it becomes a science fiction movie at that point because she goes to the alien school of don't touch it if you're a scientist and definitely touches it as a scientist, and she disappears. And then, because I have my favorites and I have my actresses that I like and my characters that I like, we switch to a van that's just full of nerds, and we get Darcy.
It is just full of nerds,
and we got Darcy from Thor, and I love Kat Dennings. I'm sorry, the bias is there. I don't care.
I thought her thing was funny, where she was asking everybody's we're not supposed to talk to each other, so she just asked the other ones. They're like, well, I do this, well, I do this, and she's like, great. SWORD has something, and they have no idea what the fuck it is.
I love when she gets there, too, and she starts rhyming off. It's like, well, there's, the Space Force here, and I see Army, and I see Navy, and I see military, and I see sword, and I see FBI. I can't wait for the T-shirt. I love her. This is her show now. I don't even care. It's good. Eventually, her and Agent Wu end up being like sort of the buddy partners of the episode.
Well, so they sit her down. She does astrophysics.
Yeah.
She does astrophysics, and they sit her down. And they're like, "Here's your equipment," and she starts. They're like, "What do you get?" I'm like, "Dude, she just fucking sat down."
Yeah.
So she starts, putting out a whole bunch of astrophysics technobabble, like, there's this level of this kind of radiation out, blah, blah, blah. And she finds, like, a broadcast signal in amongst, the radiation signal. And, has this old fucking, I don't even know what it is, but it's old piece of equipment that has a screen on it.
She just says, basically, get me the oldest TV you can find.
Yeah.
I think she says literally, like, I need an old TV, not flat.
Yeah.
And I think over the course of the rest of the episode, they just keep bringing her old TVs.
So she finds out that they start basically watching the same thing we've all been watching.
Right.
These first couple episodes.
She basically starts watching the sitcom and like binge watching. She's binge watching what's happening in there.
It and everything, and they're like, "Oh, what a twist!" But the funny thing about the sitcom, I find out later, is that the parts that we, as the audience watching, see that are like not supposed to be part of the sitcom, like the beekeeper, or
are all real. Well, not the beekeeper, but the other character. They start. Basically, as agents, they've got a big corkboard up there, and they start looking at the characters on the show.
Yeah, and they start matching
figuring out who they are. And then they get the brilliant idea that they're going to send somebody underneath because the barrier might not go all the way down. So
they send a guy in a radiation suit, and when it hits whatever this thing is, so he's attached to like a rope or something. He's attached to some sort of cabling. And when he hits the barrier, it, like, warps his suit to more fit what's going on, and it cuts the cable off. And when they pull the cable back,
it's a skipping rope.
Part of the cable is a jump rope.
Which I love. I think that's great. The thing that I found bizarre about that, though, was, like, even when Monica, like, she didn't know what it was, but when Rambo was, like, at the wall and sort of touching it and feeling her way through, she was very aware that she was going through something. Buddy that was climbing through the sewers didn't seem like he was aware. He was just trotting along.
Of the suit.
That's fair. But
It may have been because of the suit, because she was touching it with her hands. He had that huge get up on. But we find out that basically all the scenes that we as the audience see, like all the ones that are like kind of off, like the beekeeper,
the radio,
her finding the drone, the scene with the radio in episode 2 where you find out it is Agent Wu talking. Those parts are edited out in the feed that the sword people that the sword agents are watching. They don't see, they just see like a weird glitch, like a weird cut.
Because they're not part of the show.
Yes.
Which is especially,
so they figure out something is editing the show to not show those things that aren't quote supposed to be part of the show.
I mean, I'm sure you could go down a rabbit hole talking about that as like a metaphor for TV censorship and whatever. But like when she, like, I'm gonna sort of push to the end a little bit, when she like sort of force pushes Rambo like right out of the reality, is the first time we see her manifest her powers in the same way that she did in the movies. So, you know, she just realized that she's faced somebody from the real world, so she became like real world her. for a second. And it totally, when she does that on the show, it just totally cuts to like the Stepford Wivey looking
the end credits.
Yeah, well, it's the four of them sitting in front of the TV looking like a typical happy sitcom family.
Yeah, there's a visual cut that they see.
Yeah.
So we're actually, as the audience, we're actually seeing more of the show.
Yeah.
The imperfections of the show that the sword agents aren't.
Yeah, I like the fact, and this is where I get into that that editing, that box style thing, because even when we were in her world, when it got to that point where she was like magicking Rambeau like out of the world, it wasn't in the TV format, it was in the movie format because it broke the TV timeline. And that's where I think something simple like that box dimension thing is such a clever little, like, yeah, you're in where she's doing this, like, show, but this wasn't part of the show, per se.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I just found it way too cute that even though they ended on, like, the super happy family on the couch watching TV, what was playing in the back was Voodoo Child.
Oh.
Because, I mean, those of us wrestling fans know that that's what bad guy Hulk Hogan came to the ring for a while, so you just think about Hulk Hogan. But it is Voodoo Child, and
Isn't that a thing of, like, the 80s are showing up now?
Well, it is, but also, like, you're talking about somebody that just magicked somebody, so magic, voodoo.
Well, I assume that next episode is going to be in the 80s.
But I just thought, as a reference to her finding her power.
There's another thing. So after Wanda pushes Monica out, Vision comes in, and for a split sec, for a little bit, we see, like, Vision looks
dead
like
Vision.
Dead Vision, like with the Soul Stone gone and his head like collapsed, and he's dead Vision.
Now, see, I'm torn on that for a second, because how do I put this into a proper thought? When she looks at Vision, is she having a flashback to the minute that he died, or is she seeing how Vision really is because she was the real her for a second?
I think she's seeing how Vision really is, because she's the real her for a second.
Either way, you could play.
I think she deep down knows Vision is dead, but she's created this world for herself where he's not, and they have this family and they have this life and everything.
Mm. Now,
but yeah, I bet this is how Vision comes back if they decide to have Vision come back? ?
I think so.
It's very clear that Monica's still wearing all the clothes from the show.
Well, this is what we talked about at the beginning when we were talking about the first episode. Like, I don't think they revive him. I mean, they could. I don't get me wrong. Like, it's absolutely possible. But I don't think it does them much good to kill him in their biggest movie event so far. Bring him back for their first show on Disney Plus just to kill him again. And I mean, realize.
No, I think he is going to be dead. I don't think they are going to bring him back. I think this is all Wanda dealing with grief.
Oh, it is. Like, Elizabeth Olsen purely said that. Like, she wanted when she was working on the show, she wanted the whole show to be a metaphor for grief and depression and mourning and loss. And...
I think it takes away from the idea of the show if they bring Vision back.
I think it does.
I bet she walks out with those kids, though.
Yeah, this is the problem you're going to have, because definitely this show was designed to introduce Wiccan and Speed, or who becomes Wiccan and Speed eventually. But you're going to have to do some pretty creative writing to get around the logic. And I don't care personally. Like, if you want to say that he's gone and her accepting that he's gone is what kills him again, that's a cool story. But from a purely linear storytelling point of view, if she can pull things that she's created in that world, like her kids, out into the real world, you got to do some fancy writing to explain why she wouldn't have brought Vision to.
I don't know. We'll have to see. That's why I'm not reading any of the speculative stuff or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of figured this was going to happen. Like, once we got out into the real world, we would have a lot more to talk about, and there's a lot more possibility discussion. The first couple of episodes, because they were stuck in that regimented sort of sitcom format, it's like, this is just what happens. These are the jokes that I like. I like the fact that they took the piss out of this cliche or that cliche. Hey, back in the day, you couldn't show a couple in the same bed, and look, they mentioned that, and look, the effects are intentionally shitty. Like, now that we've got what's going on in the real world and we can have a little bit more of a linear story conversation, I think the conversation, at least for you and me and podcasts like what we're doing, is going to become a lot more rich a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And like I say, on the other side of the coin, I love the whole, because we are in the real world, like I said, you're pulling characters from Captain Marvel, from Ant-Man, from Thor, like you're pulling all the threads of all the different already existing Marvel stuff together. And on a lighter note, like I said, I just like the combination or the potential team of Darcy and Agent Wu, because they're just fun. By the end of the episode, they're literally watching the Wanda show like they're at home.
Like it's an actual...
Like it's an actual show. Oh my god, look at the kid, it's so cute. I mean, yeah, let's make note of that. Like they're sitting there.
Like they're getting invested in the show.
They're invested in the show, but also the whole cliche of like they're right at their TV screen. They've got their popcorn ready. Like they want to see the next episode. I think they do a really good job of, holy fuck, we don't even know how this is working. This is bizarre. Whereas in movies like this, even comic book movies where they got the authority figures definitely don't know what's going on, they still try to act like they know what's going on and like they know what's
But clearly everybody's like, I have no idea what's fucking going on.
Well, she calls, like we said, she calls it out at the beginning of the episode, like, okay, this is the van full of scientists from all these different fields. Clearly SWORD doesn't know what's going on. Okay, now look, we've got all these agencies going on here. We don't know who should be acting on what. Clearly they don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to lean back and kind of admit it rather than fight against it, I think is a really cool thing. And you got a character like Darcy that can play that off really well. Anyways, so that was the last 2 episodes. This was Pardon the Interruption and Now in Color. And hopefully next week we'll get back to being able to focus on one at a time and possibly be doing some other stuff. We don't know. But for now, anything else you want to say about this before we sign off?
No, I can't wait for the next episodes. My sister is waiting for all the episodes to air to watch it.
To binge it?
And I almost think it's a disservice to wait. I think it's better having to wait per episode, and I don't normally say that.
I was going to say, it's sort of like the way that Disney Plus is putting out their shows is kind of like the anti-binging. They're sort of like, I know Netflix is doing it now too, but it's sort of like the what first happened with Netflix.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's about it. Why don't you tell them where to find you?
You can find me on Instagram at BlackCatFeline, where I don't post anything. And you can actually talk to me on Twitter. If you tweet at me, I usually respond unless your name is Spaz. But yeah, Black Cat Feline.
And you guys know where to find me, or you wouldn't be here. She's been Kristen. I've been Spaz. This has been FLIX
Good job, buddy.
Subscribe up there. Talk down there. Start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later. But for right now, me and Kristen are out of here. Bye, guys.